Hello everyone, my name is the Phawx. This is my review on Anbernic's latest handheld, the RG351P. Can I recommend this device? Yeah, with some caveats. This device is a bit difficult to review for a host of reasons. Basically, it boils down to two big reasons. First, the device that I have in my hand today will not be what anyone else will be able to get hardware-wise, because officially, the RG351P no longer has Wi-Fi included. This is unfortunate because it is one of the major features I had personally been waiting for from the RK3326 line of devices, but I was specifically looking to make use of retro achievements on this little handheld. The great news is that it works perfectly. I cannot express how happy I am that retro achievements is working as well as it is, including the ability to continue working no problem even after waking the device from standby literally 12 hours later, as shown in the video here. This is awesome. This is exactly what I wanted, and none of you can have it. Unless, of course, you buy a dongle, but I really don't like dongles or accessories, and I've never recommended it, including the other RK3326 devices. So, while this device is awesome for me, please note that you will not have Wi-Fi on your unit. On the second reason this device is hard to review right now, I am basically reviewing this device frozen in time. What I mean by that is that I am reviewing the RG351P with the software and OS that is on here currently. Unofficially, there is an EmuELEC 3.8 build for the RG351P, however, I am still using the 3.7 build. To this second point, I'm thankful to say there is good news. Tony is back on the scene with Anbernic, and taking a look at Tony's Git, we can see the start of something quite promising. This is what makes me optimistic about the RG351 series in general. Additionally, it looks like Anbernic is sending developer units out so that the scene can get to work. While this doesn't help us today, it should make a lot of people optimistic for the future of this device. So with those two caveats out of the way, let's get on to the main review. First, let's talk about build quality and hardware. Ostensibly, the reason we were all waiting on the RG351P is for the promise of Anbernic's build quality and inclusion of all necessary inputs on the device. Internally, we can see EM shielding over the main SoC and RAM that is doubling as a passive heatsink. They're using thermal pads to transfer heat to the shielding, which is mostly adequate for this low-power device. In this situation, because I removed the thermal pads, I don't stock thermal pads, so instead I opted to cut little copper shims. I had purchased a 0.8mm copper sheet some time ago for whenever I needed to make shims, so I opted to use that in this instance. Running Mario 64 for 2 hours resulted in temps at 6 degrees Celsius, which is perfectly fine. Also, I'd like to point out that the current official build does clock the 4 CPUs at 1.5 GHz. As you can see, we don't even hit the lower frequencies ever. Looking at the internals also gives us a great shot of everything that's included with the RG351P. We have two full low-profile analog sticks that click in for L3 and R3, a rumble motor, which ostensibly the amount of games that can use rumble is mostly limited to N64. However, other ported games could potentially make use of it. And naturally, the Wi-Fi module that is present on my unit, but will not be present in yours. It should be noted that the omission of this module has lowered the cost of the unit by $11, bringing the RG351P to $99 now. Rounding out the build talk of this review, ultimately what I'd like to highlight here is that Anbernic includes a tremendous amount of hardware in their devices, and outside of the Wi-Fi, there is considerable thought to how much they can include on the device while still keeping the device extremely pocketable and with a clear focus on solid input. Even having the battery centered directly on the device is a small touch that most won't appreciate, but does affect the balance of the device for the better. Speaking directly about the experience of using the device is slightly subpar. It's still very much positive. The low-profile analog sticks are absolutely fantastic. I've been putting the device in my pocket all week and haven't had any issues whatsoever with pocketing this device. Additionally, the analog sticks themselves have been pulling double duty for me. Since Anbernic has dual analog sticks, it's actually quite nice to play tape mode games on here. In this particular video, I'm showing off Ikaruga running off the Dreamcast emulator in tape mode, a truly awesome tape mode game to play portably. Secondly, the analog sticks are actually, in my opinion, superior to the D-pad on the RG351P. I find myself often switching to the analog stick in fighting games because it's just a far better experience. Which is probably the only negative that I can say is that the D-pad is, for whatever reason, not as good as the RG350M. Perhaps it's just my particular unit that's not super great, but it's 100% noticeable that the D-pad on the RG351P is not in the same league as the RG350M. I should note here that the D-pad is still quite usable, but it doesn't pass the fighting game test with me. So the last part of this review, I'm going to talk about performance, and again, I'd like to highlight that software updates in the future should take this device to the next level. However, where the device is now, we definitely have new thresholds of performance that we enter into over older MIPS-based SoCs. What this means is you should expect to play everything up to the 5th generation of consoles, the only outlier here being the 6th gen console Dreamcast, which a lot of games do run reasonably well. There are already a host of videos out there demoing gameplay on this device. I'm going to show off a few here, like N64, PlayStation, Dreamcast, and Nintendo DS. PSP will still largely be hit and miss here. The only other thing worth noting here is the 3:2 aspect ratio of the device really favors GBA games. So if you were looking specifically for a device with a gorgeous display that is perfect for GBA games, the RG351P is an excellent choice. And at this specific performance with the included 3500 mAh battery, I've personally tested Mario 64 running for 5.5 hours at max volume with Wi-Fi on. While it doesn't get the 8 hours touted on the box in this instance, we are still nearing 6 hours. And I'd like to mention that standby works perfectly for extended hours. I've left this device on standby for 24 hours and came back without missing a beat and barely any battery drain. This is the conclusion of my review for now. Can I recommend the RG351P? Absolutely. In fact, I will do my best to continue making videos about this device as the software matures, and hopefully we see the open source part of it for the scene to really take this to the next level. At $99, yeah, it's a bit more expensive than the other retro handhelds at the moment. However, seeing Tony involved now makes me extremely optimistic. Also, not for nothing, there is a lot of hardware in this device at $99. You have Rockchip's 3326 SoC, a gigabyte of RAM, an included 64 gigabyte microSD card, which is honestly quite sizable, an extremely nice 3.5-inch 3x2 IPS screen using OCA laminate so that no dust particles are on the screen, and a sizable 3500 mAh battery, all in an extremely small, tight package. The hardware is solid, the software needs work, but the future looks bright. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.